Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. And as you know, my name is Zenzi Sewa, and I'm here in London. And it's a nice sunny day. We're getting back our summer again. It's a bit dull before. And my guest today is Kenneth A. Posner. And Kenneth was a CEO in a technical company, but he's talking his story today about burnout, which a lot of people are going through. Some try to hold it in. Some just have the courage to let go because they're not happy and find a different way. And it does take courage. It does take a determination in you to say, this is not life. This is not where I'm happy. I want to do better. And I don't know what it will take or where I'm going, but it's got to change. And it takes courage. And Kenneth is here today to talk about his courage and his journey and where he went to, and he's doing a lot of walking. But without much ado, I'm going to pass you over to my guest, and he's in the Hudson Valley in New York, and I know you're about probably 5 or 6 hours behind us, so yes. I think I'm looking at about 7 o'clock in the morning.
It's about 8:30, Zenzi.
8:30.
We're having a beautiful summer day where it's cooled off a little bit. It was close to 90 degrees yesterday. It was hot and humid.
Oh, why haven't you got a tan? Why are you staying inside too much? Go outside and get a tan. Okay, Kenny, I'm passing it over to you. You take it away.
Well, thanks, Zenzi, and thanks for having me on your show. And I've got a pretty simple story. I had a dream job. And, like a lot of jobs, it was pretty stressful. So I balanced it out with a lot of running. And then I got to a point where this formula stopped working for me. And, part of it was at work, we were making acquisitions, but we started to run out of targets. And it got quiet and it got slow. And then the board put us up for sale. So suddenly this dream job was coming to an end, which was cool, but I realized that the next level up was going to take a lot of work. And I realized that, things were very, very, very competitive. And this idea that I could keep working harder and harder and doing better and better, I began to sense a plateau. Mm-hmm. And when you go from shooting up to the plateau, your energy drops. Mm-hmm. And that's the start of burnout. When you realize the goals that you used to have are no longer realistic or feasible. Mm-hmm. So that was cool, because I could spend more time running. But at the same time, I was starting to develop some chronic injuries from too much running. So the two engines on my little airplane were both starting to sputter. And and not the end of the world, obviously, but when you go from a high energy state to a lower energy state, that's not a good feeling. No. You don't want to go through life in a low energy state. By the way, in America here, a couple hours north of me, one of our great transcendentalist heroes is Henry David Thoreau. And he wrote in the 19th century about how the majority of men live lives of quiet desperation. Now you might say, hey, he maybe he's exaggerating a little bit. But you don't want to go through life quietly desperate. You want to be vibrant and full of energy and attacking big goals, whatever they are for you. And so I began to slip into a little bit of a funk. And what I found, what I ended up doing is I ended up finding my way back to nature through a big mountain climbing project. I even took off time from work. I became so obsessed by this project. But, my message for folks who are getting to one of those speed bumps in life or those soft patches, those points where you feel like, why am I doing this, right? Like, why am I working so hard, so I can, just work more and more and more. So my story is about reconnecting to nature. Yes, ma'am.
Let me stop you there, because you said something was very interesting, is that quiet desperation. And and it's quite right. Why should we be working? But do you think, as a man, men have this attitude about themselves, and quite rightly so? Being a man within the society, you're like the breadwinner. You've got to be successful. You've got to be able to achieve so that you can take care or look after, or you've had the ability. And when men can't do that, they become very nervous inside, because it's part of the persona and part of the I suppose the character that we grow our men up, our boys up to be, that they are the men, they're the ones that are strong, they've got to do that.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, yes. And by the way, I'm not going to speak for women, since I'm not.
No.
It may be that women are the same, or mostly the same, but we have energy. Right?
Yeah, but men are specifically brought up to be tough, be strong, be the big ones, be the ones who are providing. And so, from a female point of view, when you're looking at a man, he is the provider. So he's got that persona. So I think that's a pressure on the men as well. So you may have been holding.
Yeah, and there are a lot of different ways to be a man, but all of us have energy.
Yeah.
And we have to put the energy to work.
Yeah.
So you need goals. Look, I mean, I think most of us have a view that we're here on the earth for a short period of time, and our job is to make the world a better place. Make it better for our community, our country, our family, our friends, or for ourselves.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong about doing good things for yourself. And you know, you've got to put that energy to work. So that quiet desperation is the situation when you have energy, but you don't have the goals. The goals are conflicted, or you can't find the goals. Yeah. And the energy is in you, but it can't be used. And it starts to create anxiety, because the energy is going to come out one way or the other, either by work or by frustration.
Yeah, I think too, people maybe don't understand that a lot of our sickness, a lot of our illnesses, whatever, is because it's trapped energy, because we are energy in itself. We are that energy, and when that energy is not flowing properly, it becomes imbalanced, and when it becomes imbalanced, it reacts in a certain way, and that reaction comes out in illness. And I know when I studied the Dow Hands, because Dow Hands healer, we know that your energy can stagnate. So it's either a building up of too much energy that's not, or a lesser energy that you don't have, and you're quite right, it is to do with energy.
Yeah, Ralph Waldo Emerson, who's another of our transcendentalist heroes, he wrote, "Life is an ecstasy. Man is a jet of flame." And I think he meant women too. But again, I don't want to speak for women. So
no. When he said that, it was both to do with humankind.
We're like a rocket. It's got fire coming out the back, and it's got to go somewhere. And so the question is, if you get conflicted, if you can't figure out how to spend the energy, that's the root of malaise. It's like in the Matrix, right? You remember the movie The Matrix? And there's the sense you feel like something is just not right.
Right.
So that's your cue to figure out what's wrong. You've got to take charge of your own life. But what I did, and what I want to throw it out as an idea to your listeners, is I did a reset by going back to nature.
Yeah.
And so I did a project. It was a big project. It required climbing 420 mountains. Well, it was, and you had time to do it. You could take as long as you needed to do this, but it was a big project.
Very big.
It put me, out in nature by myself, and that allowed me to sort of reconnect with myself and with the natural world, And I sort of came out of this experience with a different self-identity, and I was able to get back on track and become productive again and become enthusiastic again. So I shook off the low energy state with new goals, and that's what I want to recommend to folks as an alternative to therapies or pharmaceuticals or other kinds of strategies, all of which may be good.
Yeah.
But nature is out there as another strategy. That's my message.
No, Kenneth, that is an excellent message, because I don't think we all realize, but although I think mankind is starting to wake up and realize that we need to go backwards in order to go forwards.
Exactly.
We need to reconnect. And even one of the things that I'd like you to tell us is how long you were in that nature, because I know people don't realize, even just when you're feeling down, even going to a park or green space and taking off your shoes and connecting with the earth, you are actually recharging and rebalancing yourself, and that's helpful. So can you imagine when you actually took yourself off to climb these many mountains, however it took you? And I think you need to talk a bit about that to give people an idea of how long it took, what you experienced in that time, because I'm sure you came out, but you went through different things in that section of time. If you can talk a bit more about what you went through on that journey back into nature, it's reconnected, which is so important. I feel that as well.
Well, Zenzi, I'll mention my book. I don't know if you can see it. It's called Chasing the Grid.
Yes.
It's available on Amazon, and it tells the story. But in a nutshell, to answer your question, 6 months. But it wasn't 6 months at once. It was 6 months if you add up all the days that I went out and did these climbs. And by the way, for your listeners, I wasn't climbing, Mount Everest or Mont Blanc. These are small mountains in New York State, 3,000, 3,500 feet tall, 1,000 meters for your British folks who use the metric system. So you could say it was more hiking and trail running and things like that. So it's a project that anybody who's healthy and fit can undertake. And this kind of project is not a race. It's more like a pilgrimage. But the thing is, traditionally a pilgrimage you would leave for a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever it was. Most of us have a hard time, dropping our jobs, leaving our families for that amount of time. So this is sort of a pilgrimage that I stitched together one weekend at a time over a 2 to 3 year period is how it works. But the thing about it is, as I spent more time in the mountains, sometimes with friends, but a lot of times alone, I started to hear some of the voices in my head. Not crazy voices, very faint.
I understand you.
Very faint voices that in the day-to-day hustle of work and family and everything else, and social media and news and crazy politicians and global conflict, those voices can get drowned out. So I started to hear a little bit more. I started to spend time in nature. By the way, the Apache people who are Native Americans in the Southwest, they have a term. They use this term, good medicine.
Yeah.
Good medicine is when you're out in nature and the spirit that moves through all things allows you to participate in something special. And it could be a sunset, or it could be the other day I was hiking up a mountain and I saw this tree that had been gnawed around. It was like a beaver. A beaver for sure was working on it, but just hadn't finished it. So it hadn't fallen over yet. But there was this beautiful pond. They had built a dam. There was this pond, and there was mountain laurel blooming, and there were birds in the trees. That's good medicine. And I feel like that can reestablish your foundation. By the way, back to men, a lot of people talk about how men have difficulty expressing emotions or expressing their feelings.
Yes.
So I've got a different theory here. I have a theory that if you're out in nature and you feel the connection to nature, that should be your emotional foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And now when you come back into the world of family and work and etc., now you're making pragmatic decisions about what should I say, what should I not say, what should I do, who can I help, how can I achieve my goals. But the emotional foundation is being part of nature.
Yeah.
And so I mentioned, for example, identity. A lot of us have these complicated, identities. I'm part of this group. I'm part of that group. And, a lot of that sets us up for conflict, right? Because politicians are always slicing and dicing people into groups and then pitting them against each other.
Yes.
When you limit your self-identity to, I'm a part of nature,
mm-hmm.
it makes life very simple. And you find I can call myself a runner. I can talk about going barefoot. I can talk about my job title, etc. And this stuff comes and goes, but the connection with nature is the foundation throughout life, in my opinion.
You're right, because we are all connected. We are all part of that energy and connection. And when we don't use it because we've forgotten, we become disconnected from it. And that's why I think it's so important. And thank you so much about mentioning about your journey, that it wasn't just, all right, it's 6 months, but you didn't do it. You didn't do it all in one go. It was a weekend here and a weekend there, which is so important. As you said, some people find it very difficult just to drop and leave and do things, but you can do bits, and those bits, a weekend here, a weekend there, it starts to stir that energy, starts to clean that energy. It starts to get you thinking and reconnecting. And when you start it and you do it over a period of time, which is good, it does have a very profound effect on you, and you start to see things differently, and you start to think differently, and you can start to look at yourself. And as you said, Kenneth, it's better than pills and potions and things, because sometimes it's just letting go and getting out of that toxic environment with all our technology, leaving it behind and cleaning ourselves, unblocking those things that have been blocking us and blocking that energy.
Yeah, and the 6 months, it sounds like a lot, but I was about 55 years old at the time. So a half a year out of a 55-year-old person's life is like 1%.
Yeah.
So I took 1% of my life up to this point to make this investment, if you will, get myself back on track. And by the way, no disrespect to pharmaceuticals and therapies and other strategies. They can definitely play a helpful role. But you mentioned the environment being toxic. And yes, for sure, it's just the side effect of technology. But one of the ways the environment can get toxic is we shelter, we hide. And it starts with a house. A house is a great thing because you don't really want to be outdoors in the rain, right? but once you start sheltering, you lose the stimulation, you lose the challenge. And so you mentioned taking off your shoes. I spend a lot of time barefoot, which I'm sure will interest your listeners. They'll be going, this guy sounds a little odd. But that's easy to restore that connection with nature, because nature is wild, right? Nature is not an air-conditioned office cubicle. It's going to knock you around a little bit. Thoreau said, we need the tonic of wildness. We need to witness our own limitations transgressed. Or in other words, we need to be knocked out of our comfort boxes. So it could be you go out and it could be hot. It could be cold. It could rain on you. You could be harassed by mosquitoes. You could, touch a plant with thorns. You could get tired, right? Because you're walking and you're climbing. You need those challenges to knock yourself back into a state of vibrancy. And what I appreciate about nature is when you're out there, you're in full mind body engagement. Whereas when you're behind the keyboard, you're only using a very narrow slice of your capabilities. And that's the risk When you don't engage the full body, it goes stale, it loses its capabilities, and that contributes to that loss of energy and that quiet desperation.
Yeah. No, you're so right, because I find, as I said, I'm in London. Of course, we have winter and it's dark and it's raining. You don't want to go out. But come summertime, I'm lucky enough to have a garden, and it's not a big garden, but I've got a lovely big elderberry tree that grew out from nowhere over the years, and I've got my hydrangeas and bushes and things, and it's like to me it's a little bit of heaven. And so when it's sunny and I've got my tables and chairs, I'm out there with my laptop. I've got my cords going through the window, my extension, I plug in so I can work outside, because I really don't like staying in what I call the concrete jungle, which is inside. I love sitting in my garden in the summertime, or when I go abroad, and I go to hot country, and I can be outside and work. I love it. I like just the air, the trees, the energy. I love it. I love it.
But the other thing I'd mention about nature, I mean, I think the tonic of wildness that Dora was referring to, if you go out into nature, it makes you strong, because you have to move and you have to deal with, the rough stimuli, the prickles, the cold, the rain, the heat. But also nature creates the stillness where you can start to reconnect with the quiet voices that we're all made up of a lot of different voices. But our current, back to the toxicity of the modern world, one of the toxic side effects is the massive information overload that we're all subjected to. And it's great, because by having all this information, we can be smart and productive. But it's like, you're driving your car and the tachometer is in the red zone all the time. By the way, you can see this even 100 years ago, 150 years ago, people are starting to talk about this sense of being overwhelmed. Like one of your authors, E.M. Forster, wrote this great book, and he's the author of A Room with a View. And he wrote this great little short story called The Machine Stops. And it was published in 1912. And it's about a world where everybody lives underground and they communicate with screens. And he just envisioned where this was all heading. And he talked about this was the age of irritation, because all the stress was in the mind. People didn't move anymore. So he foresaw this, and I read that during the pandemic, and it was like, boom, he nailed it 100 years before it happened. But the information overload, I think, going to nature gives you a break from that. So that's part of the reason that I advocate for reconnecting to nature as, the fundamental or a fundamental spiritual path. To self-empowerment and becoming, the true version or the best version of yourself. It's reconnecting to that part of us that's becoming disconnected, so that we can actually, as I said, unblock, reconnect, recharge, and think clearer and see things clearer. Exactly. And by the way, for any question that we have today, you can go to ChatGPT and ask it what it thinks, and it's going to give you an answer. I don't know if you watched our Super Bowl. Maybe not. It's not a British sport, but they're big commercials, and Anthropic had this commercial about AI. Creepy AI people who are there to sell you stuff. Bingo. You got to be careful with these tools. They can synthesize a lot of information, but it's costing billions and trillions of dollars to produce this stuff, and somebody needs a return on these investments, and it's going to come through advertising and other things like that. So the alternative to ChatGPT is to tap into, we all have it, the wisdom of our ancestors, the wisdom of 1 billion or 4 billion years of evolution. It's hardwired in us. It comes out in dreams, it comes out in visions and voices, it comes out in different ways from the ChatGPT. But it's still there. The Navajo, which is another Native American people, they talk about how to live a life of total confidence. And what they say is, if you're not sure what to do what the holy people would want you to do. That's their spiritual beings. And if you're not sure, ask them.
Yeah.
Right. So the way I interpret that, I'm not Navajo, but the way I interpret that is we have inside ourselves a lot of knowledge and wisdom, and you can ask yourself a lot, but it may help to be in a natural setting where the chat GPT and the social media is quiet. You might need that stillness to be able to hear that wisdom.
You are absolutely correct, because yes, and this is what I think we need to understand in this day of technology and so much going on and so much buzz, 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 buzz. We need to have time for quiet and stillness. Whether you're outside or whether you're inside, you need to have that quiet. And this was actually forced upon us about 5 years ago when we had lockdown all over the world.
Right.
Did you see how the world, for that short time, it changed? It changed in the sense the sky became bluer, the seas became cleaner, because everything had to stop.
Right.
People were stopped, made not to go into the office, stay at home, be quiet, separated, although it affected some people in a negative way because they needed that. But all in all, it made people stop and think. And this is why I say mankind is starting to wake up, because it was that action of stopping us, making us sit still and think. It made a lot of people think. And this is when you can tap in to your higher connection. And that higher connection, we were created like that. There is a force there that we became disconnected. And to be connected is just to recognize it and be still and go inward, because the answers are always there. And as you say, Kenneth, technology is there, but when technology breaks down, what are you going to do? Where's, what are you going to do?
Well, the answer is, by the way, the answer is when technology breaks down, the answer is more technology. But by the way, I've been talking about transcendentalism, and that's a 19th century term. Thoreau, Emerson, American authors like that. There's an alternative to transcendentalism. It's called transhumanism. And this is a sort of quasi-religious mindset that's popular in Silicon Valley and other places. Transhumanism is the idea that we will solve our problems by merging with technology. And to me, that's pretty creepy. But it's nice to have choices.
When you think about in the past, we have such structures that man is saying, how did we build that? How did we do that? And that so-called technology was not around. And how have we emerged for so long and come this way, and what we've achieved in the past? There's a great thing in human beings. We just need to remember who we are and reconnect.
Right. And by the way, I was in a discussion, this is a couple of years ago, and the question came up, does technology make life better? And my answer is no. Now, here's what it does. It makes us more productive, vastly more productive, right? And as a result, there are 8 billion human beings today, whereas we started, apparently there were only 50,000 of us, or whatever scientists estimate. So yes, more life, but I don't think life gets better. Life is like electricity. Electricity doesn't get better. You can have more of it, right? Yeah. And so for everything that's better about the modern world, there may be something that's not better. Yeah. And we see that in the anxiety and the depression, and people are becoming physically unhealthy today.
Yes.
How this is now the norm. Yeah. So I think we have to be careful. And it's not about abandoning technology and trying to go back to a true hunter-gatherer lifestyle. That's not going to work. But my view is you want to have the right mix of nature and technology. So for myself, it took that 6 months. Maybe that's a bigger mix than somebody else would need. By the way, probably one of your listeners is is looking forward to joining up with Elon Musk and flying to, Mars, right? That's going to be a life, because it takes years to get there, right? So that's going to be life with no nature, unless they bring some plants with them or something or whatever. I
probably eat plastic food, or food that's all processed. But go ahead.
Personally, I need a lot of nature, but I think the right answer for everybody is not that you need to do 6 months or 3 months. The right answer for everybody is to get the right mix. Yeah. And so for a lot of people, it's like, wake up. You may be short of nature in your life, so you may be short of the stillness. You may not have the strength that comes from managing yourself in a wild environment. You may not have that connection. So maybe some of your listeners are fine, but some of your listeners need a chance to read. That would be my message. Ask yourself whether you have enough.
Yeah, and it's just going out into nature, connecting back, so that we as human beings need that energy from Mother Earth and from the earth, just to be still, so that we can trigger our own inner power, so that we can ask those right questions to get the correct guidance for our lives. And Kenneth, you're quite right. Has technology really helped us? Productivity is one thing. The quality of life is another, because thousands of years ago, we lived and we were probably healthy in one way, but we've had to understand certain things and overcome certain things. But nature always has its answers for that. It's just for us to sit down and look at what we're doing and how we do it.
And if nothing else, if you understand the natural alternative and the high-tech alternative, you can choose. Yeah. If you lose the connection to nature, you don't have a choice. And then you're going to get bullied by advertisers, marketers, governments, your neighbors. People are going to tell you what to do, and you won't have any way to judge. I was going to say the spiritual path, as I think about it, it's a path of self-empowerment. Yes, because you want the ability to stand up and be yourself. You always listen to people. You always care about people, but it doesn't mean you have to agree with them and do what they say, unless they have guns or whatever, right? So you want that ability to stand up for yourself. A lot of cultures have traditions of training. Now, I'm a runner. Running is one kind of practice. Some people love to lift weights, right? Other people, like Alex Honnold, goes climbing up skyscrapers without ropes. There's lots of ways to use your body and your mind. But I like to pitch running to those who are open to it, because you're doing something so simple. You're training yourself to move from point A to point B. And it's a little bit of discomfort and effort, but you get it done. And there's so much in life that's out of control. Yeah. Family, work, politics, economy, global conflict, that if you can say, hey, at least I've got control of myself. So I can't control the world, but I can move myself from point A to point B. That gives you sort of this strength of spirit to know that you can make your own decisions and stick to them. And it helps you stand up to all the pressures of everybody else who thinks they know what's best for you. Yeah. And as you say, you have your own autonomy. You make your own decisions. And by working the body, which is there to be used, you keep all those parts functioning, so that you can be that individual person which you're meant to be. And in so being, you have that strength to stand up and say, no, I don't want this. But when we leave it all to technology, we become lazy, we become docile, we become the beings we're not, and then we're controlled. Exactly. And then we feel distracted, distracted first, and then and then we feel there's nothing we can do when we can. Yeah. So I think they're back to men. Women are different. I don't want to speak for women, but I think a lot of young men are hungry for something something a little bit tough.
Yeah.
And it's not that we have to be the stereotypical cowboys, right? We don't, there's a lot of different ways to be a man, and you don't have to be the breadwinner or the provider. You can be all sorts of things. But I think a lot of young men hunger for that discipline and that training because we know, or many of us know, that we need to do something to be better, to be more in control. And, again, that could be running, that could be walking, it could be the gym, it could be whatever is your practice of work. Some people are so good they don't need to practice, they're already perfect. But most of us benefit. And by the way, some people don't have the resources to do a practice. They're not healthy. They live in an area where crime is a problem, or war is a problem, or et cetera. So, but there's a lot of us in the middle where some kind of practice could help us with that sense of control we need to be able to stand up to the craziness of the modern world.
Yeah, and we need to open up the channels within us because we are very capable to stand up to the craziness.
Exactly.
Kenneth, are there, apart from your book, are you working with anybody can talk to you, to connect with you, to get encouragement?
Oh, sure. So I've got a website, and it's barefootken.com. And I invite anybody to reach out. There's a form to contact me, and I'd love to engage with folks. And as I mentioned before, the book is called Chasing the Grid, and it's a great story. I've gotten great feedback on it. It's meant to be a page-turning, fun story, but it's about this story of hitting a soft point in life, that burnout, the beginnings of that quiet desperation, and doing a radical pivot, going back to nature to regain the energy and bring it back to, the digital world, right?
Yeah.
My goal was always, in nature, I experienced this vibrancy. And sometimes it's painful, but it's the full spectrum from pleasure to pain. And there's the excitement and the energy. And I wanted to bring that back into my work and family and the community. And so I think this project helped me do that. And I hope it's helpful to other people too.
Thank you. Kenneth, before I say thank you, can you leave us with a gold nugget or two of advice to those who are listening, to encourage them to start on that road?
So it's funny. I do have a advice, and as you get older, you get craftier and more patient, right? But when you're young, you don't know much, right, compared to older people. So the way you learn is by doing. So my generic advice would be take action, do something. It may work out, it may not work out, but you're guaranteed to learn something. And a lot of times sometimes I see young people and they're facing the craziness of the world and they hesitate and they're not sure, which is very understandable. But I think taking action will get you moving faster, whatever that might be for you.
Okay, so everyone take some action, whether it's go sit in a park, walk in a park, just go out, come out of that concrete jungle, leave things for a while, walk in your garden. In London, I've got a park not far from me. I've got my garden, and it is about getting out, seeing that greenery, connecting with that greenery, and being still just for a while, and try and make it a regular occurrence. As Kenneth did, he went walking on mountains, not big ones, and it wasn't all at once. He did it over 6 months, but it was like a weekend here and a weekend there, just getting away where you can leave the technology and the hubbub behind and just be in the greenery, just be in those mountains and be still for a day or two or an evening and just breathe. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for joining us, Kenneth, in the Hudson Valley. And for those of us who are in London, here in London, thank you once again. Until I speak again and have my next guest, bye for now. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Zenzi.